I'm Luca Giliberti, contributing writer at Gold Derby, and I'm joined today by Tawny Cypress, who plays
Ooh.
Taissa Turner on Yellowjackets. And
Hey.
Tawny, I want to start on a broader note and kind of collect your thoughts or overall thoughts on season three, because you're on the record saying that it's your favorite season to date. So now
Mhm.
that you can talk about it in full, what about it particularly resonated with you and maybe made it stand out above the rest?
For me, I had a really great scene partner for the whole of the season. It was a joy to work with Lauren Ambrose. And I we got to tell this beautiful story of love and a little obsession. But I think I got to do some really great acting this season. They gave me some really great material, and it was a lot of fun to play Taisa this season. It was the most fun I've had so far.
I know that you had a conversation with the showrunners at the beginning of the season where they kind of clarified that Tai and Other Tai are the same person, meaning they
I mean,
share this. Go ahead.
oh, they did not explicitly say that they are the same person, but they everything they said made me assume like I had to work out something for this character, and so I was like, oh, okay, so they share all the same memories. They know about each other, so they're the same person. That was my thing that I came up with.
Yeah, and based on that, based on this new information that you learned, how and whether did you have to recalibrate your characterization of Other Tai to kind of factor in this new information? And how did you maybe have to recalibrate your performance then this season?
Well, I think acting, especially on television, is like, water. It flows, you have to go with the waves and it comes at you. You make a history for your character, then all of a sudden they tell you, no, it's the same person or whatever it is, and you
Yeah.
have to, like you said, recalibrate your history. And it's simple. They're just little tiny tweaks. So I always thought Taissa was a narcissist. She has everything she says comes from an I perspective. You can go back to season one, everything she says, even when she's trying to get rid of her wife in season
Oh,
one,
yeah.
she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's always this,
Mhm.
uh and so I knew that about her. And so I took that even further. I was like, oh, this is narcissism to the nth degree where she has like completely created this other thing that she can blame, that's not
Mm.
her. And so that's where I went with it.
In the fifth episode of this season, that they actively tried to summon Other Tai after Tai pulls the Queen of Hearts and is tasked with killing Ben in the past. And that it was really
Right.
Van's idea. She's the one who came up with it because I think there's a big difference between Other Tai, emerging on her own and her emerging after being pursued or sought out. So, what did you make of that moment?
I mean, I still attribute it to the same effect of, finding a way to do these hard tasks without taking responsibility. And perhaps she's just learning how to do that as a teenager. I'd have to talk to Jasmine about that, what she was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the interesting part about it is that Van is kind of the one who comes up with it, with
I
the idea
know.
first. And I guess my instant reaction was, oh, it's going to come back to bite her at one point. And depending
Well,
on how
that's
you,
it did. When Taissa, adult Taissa, needed to find somebody to blame for all this crap going on in her life, she didn't know how to like summon this other Tai. She goes and finds Van because
there we go.
she knows Van will do it.
And I think there's also something to be said about the fact, or maybe you could talk about that, but I think there's something to be said about the fact that Other Tai was kind of born in the wilderness, or at least emerged there
Mm,
for the first time, or so we think. That's
mm,
kind of her home, right? Because when she reemerges 25 years later, she's in civilization. That's a completely
mm.
different place. That's not a place she necessarily knows how to navigate. So,
It's true.
how do you think, or do you think that kind of informs some of Other Tai's behavior, in the present, especially in that first season?
I am going to disagree with you that it started in the wilderness. As a
Great.
fan, I
I
have
love
nothing
that.
to base this on. I have nothing to base this on. This is all my fan theories. I think
Mm-hmm.
she was there on the soccer field. I think other Ty broke Allie's leg. I don't think Ty meant to do that, And she sits there in the locker room, sort of disassociated afterwards, and it just feels like, she's it might be the first kernel of this finding something else to blame. I don't know. I don't. That's a great psychological question, and I have not explored it.
We know that Other Tai is absolutely obsessed with Van, and that she wants to save her in almost a selfish way, as you've described many times. But in season 2, when Other Tai emerges in Van's presence for the first time, one of the first things she says, or the first thing she says, is, "We're not supposed to be here." What do you make of this line in hindsight, based on everything that you know about, or everything that you've come up with for Other Tai now? Do you think it's at all related to what we were just discussing, or do you think the meaning is something completely different?
I have never thought about that at the time. You get these lines and they're so obviously supernatural, and you're like, how do you make sense of this? A lot of the supernatural things that happened with Other Tai and Tai in Van's presence, I truly believe were hallucinations of Van's because of the cancer. And that's how I make sense of it in real life.
Not to sound like a freak, but I think we all sometimes have hallucinations, or we all have make things up, or see things that are not really there, or hear things that are not there. And that's why I love this show so much, and how the show and how the writers have explored that.
Me too. I mean, if you'll remember, I mean, that moment happened in season 2 with Other Tai coming for the first time right after Van took medication, for her cancer. So, like, I think they're all unreliable narrators. Like you can't really depend on what anybody's saying or seeing.
In season 3, you had to switch back and forth between Tai and Other Tai all the time, and I'd just be curious to hear from you whether there were any like signifiers in the script whenever Other Tai would take over, or did you have to make like a conscious decision about when it was Tai versus Other Tai?
There was a lot of discussion with the director and the writers and the producers, but basically I was told at the beginning of the season it's basically going to be Other Tai the whole time. Pretty much, if you're watching the season 3, it's Other Tai the whole time.
This beautiful, tragic relationship between Tai and Van that you and Lauren Ambrose really wanted to bring to life. You really wanted to bring this final chapter to life. And I'd be curious to hear from you how you went about that, given that, you're playing Other Tai then essentially this season, because we know that both Tai and Other Tai are obsessed with her. They love her and they want to save her, but they kind of have different ways of going about it. So how do you navigate all of that in trying to bring this love story, this relationship to life?
Yeah, so Lauren and I knew from the beginning of the season that she was not going to make it to the end of the season, which broke our hearts. And we decided, we didn't know what the story was going to be, but we knew we were going to be working together a lot. And we were like, let's just fucking fall in love. Let's just fall in love. Let's just do it. And so we basically did. We just we hung out a lot, and she's such a giving actor. It's easy to fall into whatever she's giving me in a scene. We just tried to, we decided very early on that this is how we were going to play it. And it was sad, but we tried our best.
There's also a conversation at the beginning of the season between Tai and Van that I really appreciated, where Tai is like, why can't we be together? And Van then implies that she ditched her, for a veneer of respectability and for a high-powered law degree. And I think that's interesting because we're obviously all very curious about what happened in those 25 years that haven't been explored yet, especially, between Tai and Van, how they kind of went separate ways. Did you and Lauren ever have conversations, about that time? And if so, is there anything that you can maybe share about those conversations, about what you came up with?
No, we haven't really had too many discussions about what happened in the years that we were not together. We talked to the writers and everybody about why we broke up and when we broke up, and those sorts of questions were answered. But no, we went our separate ways. So I don't think that was, a question on the table of what happened in the meantime.
Worth bringing up in this context is this conversation that happens between Tai and Van in the past, in the 8th episode, where Tai, expresses fear over returning to civilization because she's scared that she and Van won't be able to, love each other publicly. Do you think that fear may have factored into her, ditching Van once she returned, or do you think?
No, she went on. She fucked a bunch of chicks in college. She said that.
She said that. Yeah.
she's very open. She's very cool with who she is. She needed to maintain an image. And speaking about that, going back a question, you were talking about Lauren and me doing this love story, and its other Tai is obsessed with her. If that was Tai, I don't think any of that stuff would have happened. You know, other Tai is so obsessed with Van that she needed her. She needed her to live. She needed this. This is what she wanted. Threw away her whole life to get this, so that she could just be free and have fun and blah, blah, blah. If our Tai was a part of any of that, that situation would have gone so differently.
Do you think it would have ended up like her relationship with Simone, her relationship with her family?
It certainly would have been a lot more boring. Because our Tai is only she's got a candy coated shell, you know. Her life is perfect. Her life is storybook, and that's the way she wanted it. And so that's, you know, that's what she's going to go for.
Obviously, Van is ripped away from her at the end of the season, and you have these incredibly emotional scenes. You know, when Tai finds Van on the floor, dead on the floor, and then when she buries her. How did you prepare for those scenes, especially given that it appears to be real Taisa who is reacting to those moments, or maybe not? Maybe you could say that, but how did you prepare for those scenes?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's the realest Taisa you're going to see, a different version of Tai that you've seen yet, her most real version. So that this is the beginning of her actual story, in my opinion. It was so easy. I mean, it was heart-wrenching and fucking sucked, but walking into that room and seeing Lauren lying on the ground, it was terrible. And it was very easy to be emotional about it, and those moments become your life, your baby, you know. And to see like the heart scene is like my most favorite thing I've ever taped. It was this beautiful speech Amini had written, a gorgeous eulogy, and dedication to love for Van. And I was so proud to have gotten this speech, and it got cut out of the show, which is heartbreaking for me, because it was like my baby. Yeah, it was like my baby, you know. But the moment still works. I'm not taking it. I'm an actor. I have no fucking say in any of that stuff. I just do my job, and they do whatever they want with it. Those moments were special, very special to me, and very easy to act.
Obviously, I already touched on the burial scene, the heart beating scene, and the fact that a big part of that monologue was cut. But what we do here is that Tai basically says she's done forgetting, right? She's going to remember all of it. She's going to remember all of Van, and she's going to remember all of herself. And then Van's death really leads her to reevaluate everything that she remembers about her past, including Shauna's involvement in everything that's gone wrong. And I guess my question is, why do you think she forgot all that in the first place, especially if we're to believe that Tai and other Tai share the same thoughts and share the same memory?
The Stockholm Syndrome, the whole, you know, like you forget, you get home, you're so elated to be home, you forget all the terrible things that happened. You put it aside, you're not going to talk about it ever again. So obviously those things go away. I'm surprised it took that long for somebody to remember, because that teen Shauna, she is a piece of oh my goodness. Yeah, it surprised me that it took that long for somebody to be like, Shauna was fucking nuts, and she's the cause of all this. And that's it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how that plays out, for sure.
What lies or what stories are we willing to tell ourselves in order to keep sanity intact? Right. And sometimes we romanticize the past, and we romanticize the people in our past.
Well, all the time we do. I mean, that's a natural thing to do, for sure. Make things weren't as bad as they were. But I do that too in my life, you know. But I think mass amnesia is a good way to put it, you know. I think the creators of the show, I think, went in and tried to find every shade of crazy they could, and they were like, yeah, let's write that in. Let's put that in there too.
every coping mechanism is in this show. Both you and the writers have talked about how each season has kind of stripped away, you know, this defense. One of Taissa's defenses in the first season was this candy shell life, and now it's Van, obviously. Now that they're essentially all gone, we're going to get to see this real Taisa emerge. And I know your guess is as good as mine, but who do you think this real Taisa is? What are your guesses, and what do you think she wants? Maybe besides just vengeance for Van's death.
I think she wants vengeance. I think she's a fucking killer. She's gonna fucking kill. I think that's what, I think we're gonna see a very angry and vengeful Taisa. And I'm excited.